My name is Dave Pryor. I work for Leading Agile, and I'm a CST. My background before I got to Agile was almost all traditional project management, and kind of come from that school of thought. I used to teach PMP certification, and my journey to Agile was very long and very difficult. It took about 8 years to stop fighting against it. So now I'm very, very fortunate, I think, that I get the opportunity to work with people in classes, and the focus of my trainings is basically to try to help other people coming from a waterfall background make the journey over to Agile with less difficulty than I had. For me, the whole thing is about the fact that the process is the easy part, but the cultural change is difficult. And at an individual level, in my journey at least, letting go of all the things that I'd learned and all the things that I'd been taught about how projects are supposed to work, that was the hardest part. So I try to do anything I can to help other people kind of get through some of those changes with less difficulty than I had. When I became a CST, I was volunteering for PMI, running was the chair of the IT&T SIG. And I went to an Agile, the Scrum gathering, in Chicago in 2008, and stood up in the open space and said, I'm here from a component of PMI, I want to know why you guys hate us so much and what I can do to fix it. So I didn't really have a goal to become a CST. But when that opportunity came up, it was just sort of an extension of that. So the whole thing began as, how can I build a bridge that will make it easier for project managers to be less scared of this stuff? There's been a massive change. You don't have as much sort of hatred of the project management world. It's gone through a lot of changes, and now they kind of coexist. I think in some circles they coexist fairly well, or there's sort of at least a state of peace. There's other areas of project management, like digital project management, the folks that work in the web shops that are younger, and for them, they don't see any barrier between the two. They're just different ways of doing things, and they blend that stuff together all the time. So we make jokes about Scrum Butt and hybrid models. That's the way those people live. So I think that there's been an evolution, and my guess is that that will continue, and that the barriers will continue to break down a little bit. Two of my biggest light bulb moments were in my CSM class. So I've been doing Scrum for a while, it wasn't working very good. A friend of mine who was a developer said, you need to come take this class. Mike Cohn taught the class, and we had to introduce ourselves, and I wanted to introduce myself well and establish my credibility. So I said, I'm Dave Pryor, and I'm a PMP, and they all booed me. And I was shocked, like just aghast about that, because I couldn't understand why this thing that to me is so important and so hard to get, or was hard to get for me. And I also had a master's degree in project management. Nobody cared. And then later in the class, I referred to the people that do work as resources, and they threw things at me, like literally threw things at me. So that was sort of the beginning of me realizing it's more than just this process. There's language changes that have to happen and other things like that. Those are things I incorporate into my class now. I think for anybody who's going to be a CST, the more you can bring your own experiences and your own journey into the class, the more valuable the class becomes for the people that are there. The process of becoming a CST is very different now than it was. And I'm a little bit sad about that. People are scared of having to go in front of the TAC and do the panel teaching. I would love to have to go through that, and I wish that all the CSTs had to do that. I think it is a scary thing, but it's part of it. And I mean, for me, I bombed in front of classes so many times and got just tripped up in things so many times that the challenge of that, to have other CSTs there critiquing me or having at me one way or another, I think would be a great learning experience. So part of, I think, how I've changed is I'm less scared of those moments of vulnerability, and I more embrace them, because even if something doesn't work, even if I stumble, it's a chance for me to learn something about myself, about how I teach, about the students in the class, And I'm grateful for all those moments. So when I had to take a failure-bound class, I totally just bow down and be like, yeah, I completely botched that, and I'm very sorry. And it's, I guess part of it's confidence, but I think the experience of having done it enough times, I'm okay with being exposed now. I'm okay with saying, I don't totally understand certain things. So I've taught Scrum to kids. I've taught, there's a troop of Girl Scouts in Oklahoma. I taught them Kanban, and then I went back and taught a CSM class there. We also use Scrum in my house. So I taught Scrum to my daughter when she was 5, and we would plan vacations. She was a Scrum master, my wife and I were the team. We'd have daily stand-ups and things like that. I think probably the funniest anecdote about all that stuff is my daughter's homeschooled. And my wife and my daughter use Kanban to manage the work that my daughter has to do each day. And one particular day, there were a bunch of cards in the doing column. Something Katie wanted to do was in the ready column. So she kept kind of moving over the little things from the doing column, ignoring this big thing that my wife wanted her to do. And my wife called me in and she said, you tell her she's wrong. She's got to clear out that doing column. And I looked at my wife and I said, honey, I'm sorry, she's right. And that was a very interesting moment in Agile marriage for me. But I think teaching it to kids is a very powerful thing. It's like you're inoculating them against the waterfall before the waterfall gets them. But the coolest thing about it is that you don't have to teach them to be Agile. You don't have to teach them to be self-organizing and to take care of one another. They already know that. It's only that we teach them that as they go through high school and university and into the workforce. They learn a different way. So I think if we can get to them earlier and help them and find projects for them to work on, they'll enter the workforce better able to be high performing members of teams, which is great. I really want to be entertained. I need the instructor to keep me engaged. But I don't want somebody to stand up there and talk to me. But I'm also a little bit skittish about some of the hyper interactivity stuff. Part of me wants my brain to be fed, the other part of me wants to be entertained. I mean, whatever you can do to keep people engaged, I think is good. I think that being able to say you don't know stuff is a big part of becoming a trainer. You have to get to the part where you're comfortable admitting that to the students, because you're just like them, you know? And in my class, I always try to create an environment where I am one of the students, because I'm learning from them the same way they're learning from me. When I'm not doing that stuff, I'm probably either playing my guitar, hanging out with my wife and my kid. Meditation every day is hugely helpful for this kind of work. But I try to separate myself from Agile as much as possible and just look at completely different things to give my brain a rest and to find other. I might sit there and read a comic book for a while because that just lights up different parts of my brain. And I think that we need those kinds of things to be able to come back to what we do.